We are Friends United.
We are Friends United.
We are Friends United.
Together, we are Friends United.
What you're describing to me is sort of like you work on gaining your medicine for your lifetime, and then when you become an elder, it's like it's time to put it in the wind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. The elders, even though what they went through, they have a memory of the life they had before and the knowledge, and they're able to keep that. Give back your knowledge to the community, to the people, to the youth, to academic places like StFX or high schools, and just to keep that knowledge flowing from one generation to the next. So it's a circle of passing on knowledge from elder to youth, and it just keeps spiraling through life.
Hello and welcome, Gwe, to the Friends United International Convention Centre in Unama'ki, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, Canada. Thanks for joining us for our second annual Friends United Reconciliation Talks. I'm joined now by Kerry Prosper, who is a knowledge keeper at St. Francis Xavier University. Kerry, thank you so much for joining us today.
You're welcome.
And I think we have to dive right in to the subject of just what a knowledge keeper is.
I was, like in our communities, in our customs, traditions, our communities look upon people in the communities who have, I guess, experienced or did a lot of things in their life. And according to what they've done or how they've grown up, they've accumulated a certain amount of knowledge in various things, whether it's hunting, fishing, gathering, or ceremonial or traditional things. And at a point in time in their life, they look upon them as an elder, and that's something that's bestowed upon the individual and not upon yourself, but they put that on you. And as a part of that, they, I guess, expect to kind of, give back your knowledge to the community, to the people, to the youth, to academic places like StFX or high schools, and just to keep that knowledge flowing from one generation to the next. So it's a circle of passing on knowledge from elder to youth, and it just keeps spiraling through life. And and I'm grateful for all the people that in my life that have taught me things or have been able to learn things, and I guess giving back and transferring that knowledge to the youth is a really important thing of our culture.
You know what that reminds me of? J. Bell Redbird, who is one of the artists who's represented here. Did you meet Jay?
Yes, I did.
He's a wonderful, wonderful man who we lost way too soon. But his Ojibwe name was Medicine Wind. And I so often think about that phrase because what you're describing to me is sort of like you work on gaining your medicine for your lifetime, and then when you become an elder, it's like it's time to put it in the wind. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And when you had the ceremony where you became an elder. What was that like?
There's no real ceremony. I imagine there are ceremonies in various Indigenous communities. For us, a lot of things being the first area of contact, we've lost a lot of our ceremonies. And relearning and rebuilding, knowledge in our culture, it has taken a while. And unfortunately, we lost a lot of those basic ceremonies. And we just kind of learned from other Indigenous communities through gatherings, powwows, and different various ceremonies. And we just come back with knowledge. And but yet there's not a ceremony for that. It's just acknowledgement from your elders and the people in the community that you are able to contribute something to the youth. And so they call you an elder. And basically that's it.
And it's funny, in conventional society, the word elder is not looked upon with kindness or reverence, but it's a very different take in your culture, isn't it?
Yeah. It's because, we have a responsibility of, making sure that traditions and beliefs and different various ways of expressing our culture are passed on. Not to say that, through contact, through powwows, gatherings, ceremonies, we do bring in knowledge and we learn and we adapt things. All cultures are very fluid, and you gain and you learn things and you build upon that knowledge. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Of course, in recent years in Canada, we've come to, as a broader society, we've come to understand the true, or start to understand the true tragedy of what was done and in how we took your culture away from you, your language, your families. And I'm wondering how that showed up in your life. What was your childhood like?
My childhood, I'm quite fortunate that my mother didn't want us going to residential school. And it was at a time when it was coming to the end.
So she had a choice.
Yes. Like in her youth, she ran away. She stayed in the woods for weeks, so they wouldn't take her. And so she kept that. And, my father was a man that believed in education. And so we went to a provincial school. We had a day school in our community. And of course, some of my friends did go to the residential school. And, I've seen how they changed, but never understood why or how, until later in life. Yeah.
So were you able in your childhood to celebrate your culture and your language?
No, I was fluent till I was about 5 years old. And then we went to the federal day school in our community. And we had a non-native teacher who taught in English, and that's where our language began to slip away.
And was that an intentional effort to take your language away, do you feel?
I think it was in a way. And at the same time, many of our leaders and parents thought things were changing and they wanted to get their kids ready for that change. And but we didn't know the real cost and effect that would have in our later lives in losing a language and, struggling with our culture. Mm-hmm. The intentions were good and because things were changing, and when you have no control over things changing, you want to get yourselves ready as you can for what's coming. And there's some sacrifices. But that's what all contributes to, being resilient as a culture.
No question. And, they say that joy and sorrow are flip sides of the same coin. And I wonder if you can feel a certain amount of joy at seeing the efforts now among people your age and all ages to turn back to the old ways and the language and the ceremony?
Yeah, it's a bittersweet joy, and when you begin to understand what our people went through. And also when we've, in our history, just being here, being Indigenous and living here for thousands of years, we went through our own hard times. And we've come through them through the development of ceremonies and various people that developed into spiritual people. The elders, even though what they went through, they have a memory of the life they had before and the knowledge, and they're able to keep that. And also the interaction with other Indigenous people in Canada, in North America, because centralization or contact, from, 500 years, as it went west, people held on to a lot of their culture and knew what was happening, and were able to hide and stow those away until things were legally, you could legally practice your cultures.
I feel like you just punched me in the stomach, it's just horrific to think about. It really is. Is it, no, I guess I'm going to ask this in a very open way. How does it make you feel to see the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, the center established, and everything, the stories that have been told? How has that made you feel?
Well, you go through a lot of different emotions, You only know so much. And then when they did all the interviewing and all the, the stories and the pain that come out, you go through all these different emotions of pain, sorrow, anger, everything, a sense of being deprived of a culture. And then once you go through all those emotions, and then you start looking at the youth, and you start looking at people who are expressing their culture again, relearning, and then you begin building up hope again. And then you have some kind of hope in the next generation, because you see them going out and learning and expressing their spirituality, through different Indigenous ways, and telling the story on art, painting, or whatever it is. It gives you a sense of hope and a sense of a tomorrow, and that things are shifting back. And, it's just our responsibility that we keep going, keep paddling, to get through all these times. And now we're waiting for people to catch up to the guilt that they may be carrying. I don't know. And then finally come to a place where we can really sit together and reconcile what has happened and say, yes, things got to change, and, and really talk about how you make real change instead of just talking or passing some, bills. You got to walk the talk. Mm-hmm. We've heard, the apologies, and yet actions weren't there. So, the actions are really important. I mean, you can talk and say things, but you got to do things. And I think that's a journey for both of us, to do things and reconcile. And, you look at the treaties, we're both signatories. Let's own up to our responsibilities for those generations, because we're here to stay, and both our generations are facing things that undeniably we did as people together, and it's costing their lives and their generations ahead. When we look at climate change and everything that's going on.
You mentioned the word bittersweet.
Yeah.
And as you're talking, I think I feel like you mentioned anger and resentment, and it's almost probably important to allow those feelings before you can get to the hope. The hope can't float on anger and resentment, can it?
I mean, and we're talking about people here, communities and nation, but we talk about individuals carrying anger, and it bottles up, and we know what all happens. A day comes when it comes out. and you have to deal with it, own it, and move on. So as nations, I think we're going through that process right now, and we have to, unscrew the jar and let it out and own it for, both of us and start moving on.
Do you think that's harder for men than women? Because there's that in North American society, more broadly, boys are told you're not supposed to cry, you're not supposed to, anger is one thing, but you can't express sorrow, whereas girls are allowed a little more leeway.
I think, I don't know who it's harder for. It's just some people can cover it up easier. But everybody's feeling it. Everybody's dealing with it in their own way. And I think, the more we, embrace our culture, our spirituality, I think everybody can face it together spiritually, culturally, through ceremony. And, bringing back all the different ceremonies they had for both the male and female and children will, really identify and help those certain things that we struggle with.
What's your favorite ceremony?
My favorite ceremony? I don't know. I don't know if it's a favorite, but there are things we do and we should do. We have sweat lodge ceremonies. I don't know. It's about being favored, but it's about being committed to doing them. It's a lifetime journey and commitment. And I guess they're all favorites, but the favorite thing is seeing people receive some good health, happiness and long life from them. Yeah, basically. That's the favorite part.
Can you give me an example of how you feel in a sweat lodge ceremony?
No, I can't. It is something that is individual. I may tell you everything I feel, and then you may experience something totally different. It's kind of kept that way. And the humility part of, going through what you go through and just being happy with it and hoping other people can experience and learn and heal through those things.
But it's powerful.
Yeah, it could be, I guess. Yeah. It's good.
What exactly do you do in your relationship with StFX as the knowledge keeper? What does that look like?
I go there 1 day a week as a knowledge keeper. It was something I couldn't really commit to too much because I have so many other things to do. But being there and helping, the students, for one thing, the Indigenous students that come there, and I guess helping them in different ways of expressing their culture and ways of knowing and ways of feeling, and so that they can, I guess, express that in their academic achievements and their work, and also working with, I guess, the university professors in really helping them with, I guess, engaging in the different topics of Indigenous learning and subjects, the things, especially now, the things that we went through, a lot of things about, like residential school, day school, all the child family services stuff, 60 scoops. So there's a lot of real touchy subjects to cover. And, many of the faculties are not really ready to talk about those things in a way that really safeguards an Indigenous person's feelings. Maybe they're not ready to talk about those things in an academic setting. So we're going through a lot of those little learning curves and experiences together as Indigenous people go on, their academic journey in non-native facilities. And so it's a learning curve for both the student and the faculty. And, when we talk about things like indigenization and all that stuff, it's it's hard, to indigenize somebody or de-indigenize yourself, or what is that all about? So it's it's quite today it's it's quite a curve that we're traveling on, and everybody's trying to safeguard how they interact with each other as students or as teachers, or policies, things like that.
It's interesting that the recommendations are split in categories between acknowledgements and action.
Yeah.
And there really is that need, like, you've got to have the understanding before you can take action. And you're trying to, I would think you're working on both those fronts.
In some ways, but there's so many fronts that I can't, and I can only do what I know, and basically that. But there's, a lot of different things like policy development, program development, and we have our experts in our communities that can address those issues. I mean, they've been working in the field, and trying to implement, and enact regulations or federal government health regulations or child family services regulations, and working with those policies. And then now we're at the point where we're trying to develop our own. So we leave it to the experts who have been in there for a while and kind of know how things should change. Yeah. And we involve all our elders and knowledge keepers. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're making a difference?
Me? I don't know. I hope so. I think so.
You feel a sense of contribution in doing this?
Yeah. Different things, yeah. When they asked, asked me to come and speak or help with them some stuff, it helps. It helps me, it helps them. Yeah.
That helps you too.
Yeah. I learn just as much as they do.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
And what are you doing when you're not there? So what are the other ways in which you are performing the role of being an elder in your community?
I don't know if it's performing a role. It's more like living as an elder.
Yeah, thank you for correcting me on that.
Yeah, like you're just living your life, and like you are going through changes yourself as you get old, and you look at things differently, and you think differently, about the future. You think of time frames, you think of things you're going to get done and you're not going to get done, and you think about, children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and you think about their future, and it's all of those things are, look at it, it's supper time went by and bedtime is coming.
We're in the fall. What if there's one thing you love teaching your grandchildren or great-grandchildren? Do you have great-grandchildren?
Yes, I have one and one on the way.
Oh my gosh. If there's one thing you love to teach them or feel really, there's an urgency or importance about teaching them, what is it?
I guess one of them was learning how to be happy no matter what's going on. Whatever you face, deal with it, but try to find some sort of happiness somewhere just to keep your mind good, yeah.
And what advice would you give them in terms of how to do that?
I guess for me, knowing they were put on this earth for some reason, and it's their heart that's going to make them find that, and once you hone in on something that makes you happy to follow it, something that's going to, that one moment of happiness that'll get you through anything, just find that place.
Yeah, I think that's the secret to life.
Yeah.
Really, I'm in total agreement. I think that we, too many of us are looking for happiness outside of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's got to be found within.
Yeah.
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 And that, like so many things, is something that we as a broader society are coming around to realizing, oh, our Indigenous brothers and sisters have had it right all the time. Whether it's the connection to Mother Earth or to each other or to the land.
Yeah, but there's so many things going on, in their lives, and I can only imagine what things we're going to have to face in the future. But there's other things that can help you find that happiness, whether it's education or, being good to yourself physically, how you eat and everything, your health, and, all of that will contribute to it. But yet we don't know how they're going to embrace life and what risk they're going to put themselves at. And, what society is, what kind of forces that, or things that help them find it, maybe a little harder for them to navigate through. You just don't know sometimes. It
strikes me that one of the ways to find that sense of calm and happiness is, some would call it meditation, but I'm looking at these beautiful pieces of art in front of us that were created by Sandra Simon. And I know you were a very good friend of Sandra's, and I've watched videos of her doing this work, and I realized, and she would do it for hours. And I guess, like painting, it is a type of meditation. And it's an art that is almost lost now. I wonder if you can tell me about her work and about her.
Well, I've known Sandra for quite a few years. We're kind of neighbors, we grew up not far from each other. We knew their family, they knew us. And, what I remember, she worked very hard.
How did she grow up?
She grew up, in a home with, I think, 3 sisters, maybe more, I'm not sure. Because I think her father had 2 families. She had a couple of stepsisters, and then, their mother passed away and he remarried, and she was the second group in that family. And, they lived not far from us, and she worked very hard helping her dad work in the woods, and, he'd cut pulp and sell it, and, they'd be in the woods working with him, peeling pulp and stuff like that. She worked hard. She was good work. She had a good work ethic. Wherever she worked, she did her job. Yeah. And we never got to see them much out and about. They kind of stayed home. And they'd come out every now and then. With the community. But a lot of times they kept to themselves and worked. And they'd go to Maine every summer, pick blueberries, the whole family. And then they'd stay and pick potatoes. So we wouldn't see them till around the end of September into October, when school starts in September, and we wouldn't see them in school until about October. And back then, a lot of communities took their kids out to work and make a living through these, seasonal jobs, and they'd just come back and re-enter school and pick up from there. And it was a thing that, the school accepted, and, so we'd see them, and, they'd come back with different products from Maine, different kind of foods and stuff. We're amazed on stuff like that. Yeah. Yeah, she worked hard, her whole family, and they'd go out fishing eels, in the wintertime, and come home, and they'd be busy cleaning the eels that they got, and then her father would sell them, peddle them around in Antigonish or to different stores and people. Yeah. So they're constantly working out the land to make, supplement their income. Yeah.
And how did this artwork come about?
Well, it's been around for a long time. I don't know how it originated, but
for her.
For her, our band, we would hire different people to come in and teach certain crafts. We brought in people to teach pottery, leatherwork, basket making, moose hair tufting, or they use moose hair like quills and make products, Quillwork, tanning hides, wooden flowers. And a lot of people took those in the community, those little courses, and they'd do things for a while and it would stop, but when Sandra took quilling, she kept at it. And I knew she would go out and get porcupine, and then she'd ask me, or I'd find porcupine driving. I was driving to meetings all the time, and I had a truck, so if I seen a porcupine, I'd throw them in the back, especially in the summertime when, their hair's gone and all they have is quills on them. It made it a lot easier to sort the quills. You didn't have to take the hair out, because she used to complain about cleaning the porcupine and, all the hair that comes off with the quills and having to sort that all out. And
Wow, so at a certain time of season, you get a clean porcupine.
Yeah, so I started picking up porcupines for her and other people that do quill work. And we'd barter over price, and she'd show me what she was making, and in the beginning, it was not cruel, but she was doing good work. But, next year she'd show me some more. Wow, I said, they're getting better. She says, yeah, I'm learning how to do this and that, and see this, she'd be telling me. And then every year it progressed, it got better. And it was really, I enjoyed watching her develop her craft and her art. And you could see it, coming up to, it's like somebody working towards a masterpiece or something. And it was really nice to see her improving and being really proud of her work and the progression she made. Yeah.
I think it was almost a lost art, wasn't it?
It was, almost a lost art. Various communities had people that did work, but very few. And I don't know why. I guess it was just something that nobody had time to do. And we're always busy just trying to make a living or subsidize their income in different ways. But when she started, she enjoyed, and I think it was a really big part was, being a mother, bringing up her kids, and just finding that peace in working with quills, like say, she said she'd work in the day and then she'd do her core work at night. So that was her time of, I guess, really, bringing her day to a calm place. And you could see it in her work. And like she said, she was doing some care for the elderly in the community. And at the same time, I imagine there's a lot of stories told and between her and the elders there. And it kind of, I guess, helped her, move into that elderly age and, kind of settle down in her mind and reconcile what she grew up with, and then eventually start, I guess, really putting her feelings and thoughts and emotions into her work, and you could see it come out. Yeah.
And it turns into beauty.
Yeah, absolutely.
That is like alchemy.
Yeah, so that's her development and her reconciliation, and it really come out in her work. And, I was glad to see, just watching her in that film and, seeing her face and the way she expressed herself. She was really at peace and happy with herself, and, just kind of climaxed into a point of her life where she's really peaked in doing this work, and you could see it in her.
So I think it was a lovely kind of example of reconciliation when Sandra met Rolf, and Rolf asked why she wasn't making more of them. She said that it took too much time and people would only pay $50 for it. And you know what Rolf's response was to that? So he said, well, I want to help support you. I want you to do this. His whole the ethos of this place is to give back and to shine the light on Indigenous talent and beauty. And so at one point, I'm not sure if she asked him, I think she did, but they talked about it, and Rolf bought a car so that she could go from community to community around Cape Breton and teach younger people how to do this.
Yeah, I remember she put a course on in the community, and I don't know how many people were there, but there must have been about a dozen people or so, and they made little projects. And I think some of them are still quilling today, doing little work. I think my daughter started quilling. I don't know if she learned from Sandra or she just picked it up. But certainly there's a lot of them started out like Sandra. You know, it is a necessity. You needed some money for something. So you'd make something and you would sell it and you'd put the money towards that thing you needed, whether it's school time when you need money for school clothes and stuff for the kids, or near Christmas time, or near Easter time, or if you're going on a trip, you need to make some money. They would whip up a bunch of stuff, sell it for what they could get, and then just, continue on. And I guess when she come here, it changed, the whole outlook of her work. Getting truly recognized for what she made and for the time and effort she put into it was really, really important. And then that's what you saw in her. When her work was valued, you could see her change as a person who expressed herself as she expressed herself in these baskets. I think she really felt good about herself and what she did. So it went from surviving to something that you contributed and you were rewarded for your work, and it's beautiful. Yeah,
a deep sense of pride.
Yeah, absolutely. And and knowing that she was contributing to our culture, and knowing that somebody that's coming up in this art will probably do, hopefully, maybe just as good as work she did, and for them to experience the same thing.
How does it make you feel as her lifelong friend to see her art displayed with this incredible, selection of art from across the country? A former national chief said there's nothing like it anywhere in Canada. And yet here's her work displayed with all these other pieces.
Yeah, it's really good to see her work in one place. It's not scattered all over the countryside with people in their own private collections for them, and that people are able to come and see her work and actually come and see the person, on film, and really put it all together, seeing her and her work. And I think it really, I guess, helped preserve a part of her culture and her legacy and her history. And, I can only imagine her grandchildren and great-grandchildren coming here and seeing the things she did. Yeah, and what it will do for her family. Yeah.
Yeah, it's inspiring. Speaking of her family, her son, Darren Julian, is also represented here in his work, and there's a painting just behind me over there. I wonder, that painting that is the tree with the cityscape on one side and nature on the other, what does that painting mean to you?
Well, when I look at it, the tree in the middle, and you look at one half of the tree and the wigwams, when you see how things are still intact while people are living, and then you look at the other side of the tree, the branches are gone, and how much other impacts upon a resource it takes to build that city. You don't see it when you're out and about, but when you look at that painting, you can tell the various, different ways of looking at sustainability and the impacts upon, I guess, the world, with modern society and how it was in early times. Our footprints are much bigger. Yeah. And that's what I saw right away, what he was thinking.
I look at it and it's a very powerful image right away, but I am curious, I expect it triggers something very different in you when you see it.
Yeah. But when we look at our society today, it's not quite like that. We're modernized, we're colonized, and we're kind of in between that picture, right where the tree is, maybe.
And is it easy or difficult to hold on to the hope that you talked about earlier?
The hope? No, you gotta have hope. No matter what. No matter what we go through, and, I guess, I don't know how many lifetimes people went through, We had the Great Flood. I say there's a few things we went through before that, and it's, they say the world's going to end, but the world's not going to end. We're going to end. And maybe we'll come back. I don't know. It's just life, and we're just human beings, and we're moving through it in different ways, and hopefully we can get together and slow things down. But it's all living things are going through the same thing.
I'm going to think of you from now on as a knowledge keeper and a hope holder. Yeah, the hope holder. Thank you so much for joining us.
I enjoyed it. Thank you very much for asking me to do this for, a real dear friend of mine who's not here anymore. But it's good to see Darren, painting and keep that legacy going. And it's nice to know we can see Sandra's work, and they're going to be available for people to see in the future. And certainly, Sandra contributed to our community, and she still does. And it keeps her memory alive, and it keeps her family really proud, and for her and her legacy. And I know it's going to inspire, children, young people yet to come.
Beautiful. And just tell me about this basket that you've been holding.
I don't know much about it.
Well, but when did you receive it?
Just a little while ago, about an hour ago yes.
So Rolf gave you this basket, and it was the one that Sandra was making in the video we saw in the clip.
Yes. I won't be able to forget that. I'm going to have to get a copy of that so they can be together, If you want to see who made this and how she was making it, I can show you. Here she is, building this. Now, that's quite a package.
Beautiful. Thanks so much, Kerry.
Thank you. Lalio.
We are Friends United.
We are Friends United.
We are Friends United.
Together, we are Friends United.